Hello and welcome to the Daily Faded. My name is Hetz. This is the Daily Faded, where we get faded daily and talk about the politics and news of the day. I have to say, tonight is not going to be a fun show because we have to talk about everything Breonna Taylor tonight. And I don't know when this country is going to start getting it right. There's no justice for Breonna. There's no justice for Breonna. So this is TDF number 100. Last night I attempted to do number 100, but I had internet problems and it died midstream, and I just deleted it on my YouTube channel. Normally when I delete a live stream, which I hardly have ever done, but normally when I do it, I make a note deleted in my notebook for each episode. But I have to have a 100th episode. So of course nobody's watching right now, so I may be doing this 100th episode alone, but that's okay. That's okay. So today's September 23rd, 2020, and let's dive right into the COVID numbers. This is ncov2019.live. So worldwide, we're up to 32 million cases worldwide and 980,000 deaths worldwide. The United States is over 7 million cases at 7,135,608 confirmed cases, with 37,671 new cases confirmed today. So that new case number is not going down. It has plateaued in the 30s, which is higher than where it previously plateaued in the 20s. I'm sure you're tired of me saying this, but if we're due for another wave, we are not at a good starting point for things to get worse from. We also recorded 1,001 deaths today in the United States, leading us to 206,482 deaths. And of course, I always talk about California as well. Here in California, we've had 795,322 cases, with 1,722 new cases today, which is actually a pretty good number. That's a pretty good number compared to where it was a couple of weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago. And 90 new deaths in California today, bringing us up to 15,285 deaths in California. So that's what's up with coronavirus. I think that I'm just very nervous. I'm very nervous about where we're headed as people go indoors and as people get restless and we get to the holidays. People want to see each other. It's only human nature to do things that are going to spread the virus. It's only human nature. That's why viruses are so potent. It's why they are such an amazing life form, if they are even a life form, whatever they are, but they are powerful. They're powerful. So, yeah. So let's get into what's going on with Breonna Taylor case today. Police officers not charged for killing Breonna Taylor. This is from the Associated Press. Louisville, Kentucky. A Kentucky grand jury brought no charges against Louisville police for the killing of Breonna Taylor during a drug raid gone wrong, with prosecutors saying Wednesday that 2 officers who fired their weapons at the Black woman were justified in using force to protect themselves. The only charges brought by the grand jury were 3 counts of wanton endangerment against fired officer Brett Hankinson for shooting into Taylor's neighbors' homes during the raid on the night of March 13th. The FBI is still investigating potential violations of federal law in the case. So, it was illegal to shoot into the other person's apartment, but perfectly legal to do what they did to Breonna Taylor. Ben Crump, a lawyer for Taylor's family, denounced the decision as outrageous and offensive, and protesters shouting "No justice, no peace" began marching through the streets. Some sat quietly and wept. Later, scuffles broke out between police and protesters, and some were arrested. Breonna Taylor, an emergency medical worker, was shot multiple times by officers who entered her home on a no-knock warrant during a narcotics investigation. The warrant used to search her home was connected to a suspect who did not live there, and no drugs were found inside. The use of no-knock warrants has since been banned by Louisville's Metro Council. You all know the Breonna Taylor story. It is true that her boyfriend fired first, but they were in the wrong goddamn house. They had the wrong person. It wouldn't have happened if those cops hadn't done what they did. They are responsible. But in this country, it's legal to barge into someone's house and kill them in their sleep. That's legal. The state approves of people doing that. The state gives people guns and permission to do that. And this is permission right here. This is permission for all of the other cops who are out there playing the tough guy and taking situations like this and escalating them and having no respect for Black bodies. And this is permission. This is something that other cops are going to see and they're going to go, oh yeah, I can get away with it. That's just fine. A couple of responses. Rashida Tlaib, did I hear that correctly? Only one officer is being held remotely accountable, and it's not for killing Breonna Taylor, but instead for shooting apartments. It's never been clearer this country considers property more valuable than human life. She's right. She's absolutely right. This country does consider property more valuable than human life. The property crime in the neighbor's house got charged, but no crime for shooting an innocent person. Ibram X. Kendi tweeted, "The law is lawless, and it has been ever since the law replaced the master." That's just the way it is. That's just the way it is, and it's got to change. It's got to change. I'm speechless. I'm speechless. Now, normally I would be 1,000% opposed to showing something from the Lincoln Project, but I'm showing this anyway because I want you to see this video, even though it will be without, and it seems to not be loading. Let me see if I can get this to play. A militia group marches up 7th Street in downtown Louisville. They wouldn't identify their group, but I know I've seen some here before. So this is what's going on. It's war in the streets of Louisville. I don't actually know that Ben Dixon was talking about Breonna Taylor in Louisville today, but he tweeted, "These people are evil, period, full stop." That's the tweet. Whatever other cliche, you need to understand that these people are just pure evil, and they truly believe they are good. That was actually the theme of his podcast today, but I thought it was extremely appropriate for this situation. And then multiple police officers shot during Louisville protest. I just saw this news right before coming out to do the live stream. 2 Louisville police officers were shot during demonstrations on Wednesday night, a police spokesman said, after a grand jury decided not to charge any officer in the killing of Breonna Taylor. "We have had officers shot tonight," the spokesman, Sergeant Lamont Washington, said in a statement. The police said at a news conference that both officers were in stable condition with non-life-threatening injuries. One of the officers was in surgery. Although no officer was charged with killing Ms. Taylor, grand jurors indicted Brett Hankinson, a former detective, on 3 counts of wanton endangerment, saying he had threatened 3 people's lives by firing bullets that traveled through Ms. Taylor's apartment. Hours after that announcement, in a video live streamed by the Louisville Metro Police Department, officers could be seen at the corner of East Broadway and South Brook Street, where they began directing traffic. Some of them form a line, holding what appear to be wooden rods. "Stay in line," an officer says as the officers turn south down Brook Street next to a Walgreens store. As the officers begin marching south, several projectiles are launched from the police line and make loud bangs as they burst in the air. Moments later, several other bangs are heard on the video, and the officers scatter. Shots fired, the woman who is recording the live stream for the police department says as she runs for cover. At least a dozen officers take cover behind a police truck, and officers begin shouting, "Officer down." The shooting came as a group of about 350 protesters began cutting through parking lots to avoid police officers who blocked their path as a 9 p.m. curfew loomed. After what sounded like gunshots rang out, the protesters split, running through nearby yards. At least one protester was shot in the neck with a projectile. At 9 p.m., as protesters argued over where to go and how to regroup, the police began encouraging people to go home. So it's gotten really bad in Louisville. It's gotten really bad. Obviously, we have no idea. We have no idea going to be played out in the right-wing media as Black Lives Matter rioters killing the police, attacking the police. That's how it's gonna get played out. And I feel like we're in quicksand. I really do. I feel like we're in quicksand. Every day it's something else. Every day we sink a little further down, and every day we end up becoming a little bit more dependent on ourselves, because we can't depend on this government. So I don't know what to say. I really it is suffused into every fiber of our being. And that's what this is. This is white supremacy. There's no justice for a Black person. It's just that simple. Anyway, so that's the Breonna Taylor news for tonight. I was going to talk about Trump, but maybe I'll talk about Trump after this next story. So I frequently listen to Economic Update by Dr. Richard Wolff, and I'm a big fan of that show, and I'm a big fan of his. And he talked about something in the most recent episode that really stood out to me. And I wanted to pass on some of these facts because I think this is fascinating. So this is the Social Progress Index. And if you look at this map, the are the countries with the highest rating. The light blue countries, we're in the same category as some of these other light blue countries. This is for quality of life, and a whole lot of measures, both of economic indicators and of quality of life indicators. So the Social Progress Index 2020 measures 133 countries on any number of issues of social progress. 3 countries are worse off on social progress since 2011: Hungary, Brazil, and the United States. All countries with neo-fascist leaders who are pursuing autocratic goals. The US slipped from 19th in social progress down to 28th. The United States is #1 in quality of universities, but 91 in access to quality basic education. The United States is #1 in medical technology, but 97th in access to quality healthcare. Our health statistics are roughly on par with Chile, Jordan, and Albania. Education for our kids is roughly on par with Uzbekistan and Mongolia. We have the quality of education that they have in Uzbekistan and Mongolia. You can't make this shit up. A majority of countries have fewer gun deaths, fewer traffic fatalities, better sanitation, and better internet access. As Richard Wolff says, we are going through a long-term economic decline. These problems are real problems. They are economic problems. They are social problems. They are problems of justice. In a just society, everybody has shelter, food, education, and healthcare. That is what makes a just society. In a society as rich as ours, we can things and we can provide them well. Lots of countries do it. The ethos in this country of the government can't do anything right and don't trust the government is completely, it is a construct that has been drilled into people's minds to make them think a better world isn't better, to make them think a better life isn't better, to make them think if they avoided and beat down by the system, that it's their fault. It's all their fault. 2 jobs and can't afford to pay the rent, it's your fault. Get a better job, slacker. You would think the people we elect to office would do something about, let's have less gun deaths. What can we do about that? Let's have better sanitation. How about we have good internet like they have in Asia? My friends from South Korea can't believe how piss poor our internet is here. It's crazy. So, look, when you look at various international studies, especially on healthcare and education, you always find that the United States is lagging behind. And I'm bending my head like Ben Shapiro. I don't like that. But yeah, it's long-term economic decline. This is late-stage capitalism. And there are a lot of countries that put their citizens first, or at least try to convince their citizens that they're putting them first and provide the basics of life. I hope that we'll reach that point someday in this country. I hope. Moving on. So this is completely terrifying. This is actually what I had for last night, but I wanted to talk about it tonight. How naked ballots could upend mail-in voting in Axios. I can hear my dog barking outside. Ballots submitted without a required inner secrecy envelope in November's election, the Philadelphia Inquirer reports. The state of play. The decision went under the radar alongside the simultaneous decision to extend the time that mail-in ballots could be counted. But Philadelphia's top elections official warned state legislators this week that throwing out naked ballots could bring electoral chaos to the state and cause tens of thousands of votes to be thrown out, potentially tipping the presidential election. Pennsylvania requires voters to place their ballots in an unmarked secrecy envelope before placing that inside another mailing envelope. Historically, only about 5% of Pennsylvanians have voted by mail, as the state had required an excuse to vote absentee. This year marks the first time that the state has adopted a no-excuse absentee voting, so many will be voting by mail amid the coronavirus pandemic and using the double envelope system for the first time. The decision to reject naked ballots didn't apply during the primary earlier this year, which was the first use of expanded mail-in voting, so it's unclear how widespread the mistake may be. However, 6.4% of ballots were naked during last November's municipal election in Philadelphia, which was conducted under the more restrictive absentee system. And of course, the reason this was even in court was because the Republicans were challenging it, because they know the Democrats vote by mail more than the Republicans. They know they've got their leader who is doing everything he can to get Republicans to vote on the day and shun mail-in balloting, mail-in voting. And it's just a naked attempt. It's a naked attempt to suppress the vote in Pennsylvania. Whoever designed this system for the mail-in ballots, what a terrible idea to have to put it in 2 different envelopes. There is no way I would figure that out if I lived in Pennsylvania. But I'm voting in person because I'm afraid my signature won't match, because I have no idea what my signature looked like when I registered to vote, and I don't want to take a chance. So, but this is terrible stuff, you know. And look, the reality is the Republicans are not the only ones engaged in this kind of voter suppression and election rigging, because the Democrats have been busily at work in at least 4 states doing lawsuits to get the Green Party off the ballot. And I find that despicable. The Democratic Party doesn't want to let the Greens run someone for president. Last time I heard, in a democracy, people get to run for office. There have always been third parties in the country. There always will be. And for the Democrats to go after the Green Party that way is reprehensible. Reprehensible. So as they're shouting about hypocrisy about the Republicans, just remember that they talk about Republican voter suppression all the time, and they're doing it themselves this year. So, and I don't care. I don't care if people believe that the Green Party are spoilers for the Democrats. They're not. The only way the Greens could have given Hillary Clinton the election in 2016 is if every single person who voted for Jill Stein in those 3 states of Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, if all of Jill Stein's voters in all 3 states went to Hillary Clinton, she would have won. But there's no way they would have, because people who vote for Jill Stein are not going to vote for Hillary Clinton. Exit polling showed that 50% of them said they would not have voted at all if Jill Stein and the Green Party were not on the ballot. And it's a little bit more harsh. On top of which, if the Green Party, let's accept the possibility that the Green Party were spoilers for the Democratic Party, you'd also have to ask who the spoilers are, who the Libertarians are spoilers for. Obviously, they would be spoilers for the Republican Party. And Gary Johnson got 3 to 4 times as many votes as Jill Stein in those states. So if you're going to give all of Jill Stein's votes to Hillary Clinton, you also have to give all of Gary Johnson's votes to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump still wins. The basic fact is, if you believe in democracy, you believe in people running for president, you believe in people running for office. And it's not about Republicans and Democrats being the only ones who have the right to do that. It may be impossible to get elected if you're not a Democrat or a Republican, or nearly impossible given how few independents there are on the national stage. But that doesn't mean you don't have the right to do it. And that doesn't mean it's okay for parties with more power to be depriving parties with less power of their democratic rights, you know? Biden. I have not been talking about Joe Biden very much lately. And what can I say? I was obviously extremely vocal about Joe Biden in the past. And I'm going to keep it real. I'm going to keep it 100% real, which is to say, In the primary, I went after Joe Biden because I wanted him to lose. Everything I said in the primary about Joe Biden, I stand by. I still believe Tara Reade. I still think the hair sniffing is creepy. I do think he has cognitive decline, but I think it's not as bad as a lot of people think it is. But I do think he's a terrible candidate. But I want him to win. That doesn't mean I'm not going to be honest about Joe Biden's mistakes. From Mediaite, this is a couple of days ago. Joe Biden torpedoes Bernie Sanders in pitch to Wisconsin voters worried about socialism. I beat the socialist, he says. Former Vice President Joe Biden rather bluntly invoked his Democratic primary victory over independent Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders when he was asked to allay Wisconsin voters' alleged worries about socialism, saying, "I beat the socialist." On Monday, Biden conducted several interviews with local media in Wisconsin, including with Fox 11 WLUK's Kia Murray, who used her final question to ask the ex-VP about socialism and tax increases. If you could address our camera directly, talk to the voters that are worried about socialism and you raising taxes, Murray asked. First of all, I guarantee a promise I've never broken my word. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Anyone making less than $400,000 will not see one single penny in their tax raised, Biden said. Number two, I beat this. So I got elected. That's how I got the nomination, Biden added, referencing his overwhelming defeat of Sanders following a strong showing by Sanders in several early states. Number two, I beat the socialist. I beat the socialist. Look, Joe Biden needs progressives, and Bernie Sanders is out there every fucking day doing rallies online, doing town halls. He's on MSNBC and CNN all of the time, constantly talking about Joe Biden, constantly pitching Joe Biden, constantly selling Joe Biden. And what does he get for it? I beat the socialist. Complete vilification. I don't care if Joe Biden wants to say he's not a socialist, because he's not a socialist. So that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But he needs to watch how he frames it. Now, that said, nobody should base their decision on whether or not to vote for Joe Biden. Nobody should base their decision on how Joe Biden talked about Bernie Sanders on one off occasion. But God damn it, it's infuriating. It's infuriating. And it just goes to show that he is more interested in winning Republicans than in winning progressives. They have no interest in winning progressives. And if Joe Biden loses, they are going to blame it on progressives, even though the Democratic Party had the shitty policy of going after Republicans instead of going after their own base. Also, Biden needs to discuss economic issues. When they say, "Are you a socialist?" you have to bring it around to healthcare is a human right. Here's what I'm going to do about that. You have to bring it around to here's what I'm going to do about to create jobs after we've seen permanent job loss in the millions. Anyway, this is the people who said for every working class voter that they lose, they'll pick up 2 voters in the suburbs. That was the strategy in 2016. How did that do? Not so fucking well. Oh, it's infuriating. Luckily, Joe Biden got Cindy McCain's endorsement. He's shitting in high cotton now, as they say in Montana, or at least a friend of mine from Montana says that. So, it's just infuriating. It's just infuriating. So, look, we got to get rid of Trump, and I am not in agreement with Joe Biden on much of anything. Although I have to admit there are certain things on his platform page, his policy page on his website, there are certain things that are good, like freeing all nonviolent drug offenders. That's fantastic, you know. But I don't trust him to do those things, because I don't believe he tells the truth. So anyway, he didn't tell the truth in the debate with Bernie Sanders when Bernie Sanders said, did you stand on the Senate floor and argue for cutting Social Security? And Joe Biden said he didn't. Come on, we have the tape 4 times. You said it. You said you did it 4 times. All right, guys, that's it for tonight. I will see you tomorrow night on the Daily Faded. Please hit subscribe and like and hit that notification button so you know when we go on. Thanks a lot. Peace out.